at the Livesey ward. Thank you. I've got apologies from Councillor Sandra Rule and for illness, and Evelyn Akoto, who's on maternity leave. Any other apologies? Councillor Gavin Edwards. Colleagues and friends of the community, tonight's meeting is both a decision meeting. Right, okay. Thank you. Oh, thank you very much. Both a decision-making meeting and our forum meeting. So we will receive decisions from members from 3 wards later on this evening. With your permission, I've had to sort of rearrange the agenda because one of our guest speakers this evening has another commitment. So I hope you are all in agreement with that. Once again, I'd like to thank Harris Academy for hosting this evening's meeting and for us taking advantage of their wonderful facilities here. Do we have any members' disclosures or dispensations? I will remind you that this is a non-smoking building, and if you so wish to smoke, if you could kindly go through the entrance exit behind you, my left, and make your way out of the building. Please. We don't have any fire drills planned for this evening, so if the fire alarm goes off, then the premises officer will duly guide us through to the assembly point outside. Right, I'd like to make a quick... Right, before I move on, I'd like to say that we do have a deputation this evening, which we are going to take later on in the meeting. Because I've had to rearrange the agenda, I am, without further ado, I'm going to invite Sarah Pollard from Bags of Taste, and she's that's an organisation that specialise in educating members of the public in budgeting and producing meals at low cost. This evening's themed meeting is about health and the inequalities of health and what we can do to improve that situation. You'll learn a little bit more. I'm not going to say too much about it now. I'll say a little bit more about it later on in the evening. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Sarah Pollard, and she's going to tell you a little bit about her organisation. You would have, as you sat down, you would have found a sheet of paper comprised of a recipe on your chairs. So I hope you're not sitting on them. I hope they're currently on your lap, and she's going to tell you a little bit more about that now. So you're very welcome, Sarah Pollard.
Thanks, everybody. First of all, I'd really like to thank the chair for moving things around so that I could come to the meeting this evening, because I've got another commitment. It's great to see a couple of friendly faces in the audience as well. So the reason I was asked to come, Bags of Taste, who I work for, granted us some money from the neighbourhood fund, so I'm very grateful for that. And I ran a course at All Saints in June of this year. I'll give you a bit of data from that. So basically, Bags of Taste, it started in Hackney 3 years ago. We've run over 30 courses. I'm in charge of Southwark, which is one of my jobs. And what we do is we teach people who might be in food hardship how to feed themselves well for £1 a head. We go to community centres. I take all the equipment with me. I take the food with me. I take volunteers with me. I teach 2 dishes. The participants then cook the 2 dishes. We all eat sociably together, and then what they can do at the end of the course is they can buy a bag of ingredients for £3, and they make the dishes over again at home. And basically, Food cooking classes on their own just don't do anything to change people's behaviour. And what we do that's different is we build a team of volunteers. People who've done our course end up volunteering for us. So I ran a course at All Saints, which was funded by the council. And we had around 18 regular participants. The course ran for 4 weeks. From that course, we start off doing an evaluation, we end doing an evaluation. 86% of people said they saved money on their food bills. 81% said they were eating more healthily. 71% said they improved their cooking skills. 57% said they learned how to waste less. And 86% said they enjoyed meeting people. For me, I've worked in the world of food education all of my adult life. I've lived in Peckham 25 years, so I'm not a newcomer. I teach as well. It was just joyful to see so many people from diverse community coming together, whatever their needs were, and learning about how to feed themselves well. They might have just given up on cooking for themselves. They might just want to learn new recipes. They might have just been struggling to actually make ends meet. The evidence from the first course that we ran in Peckham, that people were saving over £1,000 per annum on their food bills. Now, at this point, you should have a lovely clip of the recipe that you've got, that hopefully you're not sat on, for mee goreng. It's one of our recipes. We do have recipes from all around the world. Every course we teach a meat or fish dish and a vegetarian dish. And the mee goreng noodles recipe is one of our basics. It's a Malaysian recipe. Mee means fried and goreng means noodles. It's like a basic stir fry, but added into it are noodles and egg for protein. And it's costed, I buy all the ingredients locally. You've got all the ingredients information on the back of your recipe, and you should have a lovely clip. Unfortunately, that's for some technical reasons, computers saying no, we're not having it. So that's one of our recipes. When I teach, I talk about how to save money, how to shop locally, about how to store food so that it lasts for longer. Obviously, people ask questions. So what Jill wanted to do, Jill, who organises us all, she thought, as the focus of today was around health, that we should have a competition and that people could come up with recipes by sending photographs to Jill that cost less than £1 to make. So on the idea of like feeding a family on a £5, just to generate some interest. So I'm sure Jill can give you a bit more details about it. Unfortunately, I can't stay much later. I just wanted to say I've got a course running at Pembroke House on the 23rd of February. And there will be courses running out throughout the year. So do look out on the community newsletter for details. This is what we look like. You might well have seen us in the news on New Year's Day as well, because we've got a lot of coverage from that. So thank you very much for that, Chair. Is there any questions or anything?
Thank you very much, Sarah. Unfortunately, apparently the wireless is not working. There should have been a demonstration of the meal being created, that which is reflective of the recipe that you've got in your possession. So the whole idea is that you have a go at this recipe, and it's the ingredients come to less than £5.
That would make 2 portions of mee goreng costing £1 per portion.
Righto. So the whole idea is for all of you to have a go at creating this recipe, reproducing this recipe, and then posting your photographs. If you could, in the first instance, post them to Jill, and then we're going to upload them on the Peckham and Nunhead site. And then if you could write a comment, or, you know, on whether your sort of family members enjoyed it, what if there were any challenges that you encountered in creating it, how easy, or indeed have you got any sort of recipes that you've that are trialled and tested that you've created in under £5 or even £1 a portion, which would be even better. And we're going to sort of hold a little competition, but it would be really, really something wonderful if you could all sort of engage in that, and if you could all have a go at that. And once again, apologies for the breakdown in technology, because I think that there was a film in which Sarah was able to demonstrate how to present it. But now you can be as imaginative. You can be as imaginative as you wish now, because you haven't got a reference point apart from the yes. So you can be as enterprising as you like. And this is something that we really care. A few years ago at the Community Council, we spent a whole year in educating members of the public and how to create meals and what have you, and a whole series of workshops around budgeting and reducing the obesity rate, etc., etc. And we're sort of revisiting that a little bit this evening. So please do have a go and let us know how you get on. All right?
If anybody's interested in either volunteering or, sorry, my teacher's voice, anyone interested in volunteering or referring people, particularly that you think would benefit from the course, then if you just go on the website, www.bagsoftaste.org, which you've got on the thing, you can get in contact with us. It's pretty straightforward. Thank you so much.
No, not at all, and thank you. Yes. Colleagues, we do need to agree the minutes from the last meeting, which took place on it didn't take place on the 27th of June. What's this? Oh, the decision making. Oh, right, it's minutes from the decision, because we got the decision-making element of this evening's meeting. So these are the minutes from the last time we conducted a decision-making act, if you like, for want of a better term. So that was Tuesday the 27th of June. I hope members have had an opportunity to read it and agree it. Do we agree? Yes, thank you. Right, moving on. I've got a chair's announcements. The council has published the further preferred option of the Old Kent Road Area Action Plan for consultation until the 21st of March 2018. The Old Kent Road Area Action Plan, AAP, is a plan to regenerate the Old Kent Road and surrounding area, including the extension of the Bakerloo line. It sets out a vision for how the area will change over the next 20 years. There is a policy officer in attendance. Alicia, where are you? Have you arrived? Oh, right. She's right at the back, and she'll be here until the break. So if you wish to seek any further information or further clarification on that, then do please go and see her. But she's only here until the break this evening. To hand out copies of the plan. So if you want to receive copies of the plan and answer any questions which you may have, to find out more about the plan and the consultation process, please visit our website or contact the Council's planning policy team at planningpolicy@southwark.gov.uk. As I said, we do have a business section of the meeting this evening, and there will be decisions on awards for the Cleaner, Greener, Safer Fund for Nunhead, Peckham, Rye and the Lane wards. And Livesey and Peckham will be deferred to the meeting on the 19th of March. So I hope we don't have any disappointed members from members of the public from those wards, because we're not making those decisions until, or announcing those decisions until the 19th of March. And along with the Neighbourhoods Fund decisions. In addition, we've got the devolved Highways Fund allocations, and again, they will be announced this evening on behalf of Nunhead, Peckham Rye and the Lane wards. Alistair will present a list of the community infrastructure levy projects, and we do have a deputation from the residents of Kinsale Road, supported by parents of Belham Primary. So could I invite Caroline? Where's Caroline? Oh, there you are. And are your friends here? Are they coming up with you, or you? Yes. No, right. So Caroline will present.
Thank you, Cleo. Thank you, everyone. My name is Caroline Horgan. I'm a resident of Kinsale Road. I've lived there for, 20-odd years now. I'm also a teacher. I work in Croydon, so I have a lot of experience of schools and the impact of schools in the environment. I have to say we are extremely pleased that Bellenden School is being opened at the bottom of Kinsale Road. It's a fantastic building. I think it'll offer a really, really exciting environment for the children who are moving from Reedham Street. It's a smaller site, and the school will be increasing the number of children that it can offer a quality education to. Our concern is not the school. We are really pleased about the school. Our concern is about the impact it's going to have for young people walking through the roads around the school, getting to the school safely and being able to not encounter any dangers or dangers that could be avoided. The school is due to be opened on the 21st of February. It will eventually be able to provide education for about 400 children. So you can imagine the impact on the area of 400 young people walking through the streets going to the school. Kinsale Road is a fairly narrow road. It does have parked cars on either side, and it is a cut-through for Peckham Rye. So quite a large volume of traffic travels up and down the road over the course of the day. The school is situated at the bottom of Kinsale Road, just over Dewar Street, in an area known as Troy Town. Troy Town is a very narrow road as well. It has a stepped pavement on one side and narrow pavement on the other. That's the entrance where 400 pupils will be going in. Our concern is actually about the traffic that will be travelling down Kinsale Road, up Nutbrook Road and going through Troy Town, with the concern that Troy Town has a blind corner at one end. So what we are concerned about is the impact of the dangers to the children going to school. We have witnessed speeding cars as residents. We regularly witness speeding cars on the road. We also had quite a serious accident in 2016 when a speeding car crashed into parked cars and wrote off 2 cars and damaged 2 others, and had there been anybody on the road at the time, we know they would be seriously injured. So we met with Councillor Ian Wingfield and a representation from the council back in 2016 to talk about our concerns and about the impact of the school on the environment, hoping that some action would be taken to recognise the impact. Unfortunately, nothing to date has been decided. We did have a meeting on Tuesday, again to look at this, but again, no decision has been made. And in fact, it appeared that Highways were not aware the school was actually opening on the 21st of February. They thought that it was opening in the summer. So unfortunately, nothing has been done. Our proposal, which we continue to have made, is that they temporarily close Troy Town, to allow for us to assess the impact of the school and the number of pupils using the school, and also to consider the safety of the children, and to give the council time to actually look at the whole safety, traffic safety in the whole area. So we have written to Miss Kelly, we've met with Councillor Ian Wingfield. We've also met with the executive head of the school, parents, governors, other residents, and also our 3 ward councillors, Councillor Jamil Mohammed, Jasmine Ali, and we've also spoken to Nick Dolezal, whom we believe are all in favour of supporting us in actually seeing that this proposal is actioned, So basically we are asking for Troy Town to be closed temporarily to give the council a chance to assess, to give the school a chance to actually look at supporting their pupils and parents in travelling to the school safely, and then obviously to give time to reflect on the implications and the impact. That's our proposal.
Thank you. Excellent. Colleagues, I think this is a bit of a no-brainer, but Jasmine, do you want to... Yeah. So are we... Very brief, yeah. Very briefly, because, I think we're all in agreement that...
Yes. Thank you, Chair. I did want to say, yes, it is a no-brainer, and thank you, Caroline, and representatives from the school and our neighbours. But one thing we have to... it's so in keeping with health and well-being, because how can you have well-being in an area where people are frightened to cross the road? And road safety, we've got about 5 other schools, all leading off Bellenden Road, and I think we need to all work together, because of course we support you. We've also got people in the audience from the air quality group at my daughter and my son's school, the Peckham, and we need to work together with all schools in the local area so that we can actually put pressure on ourselves, put pressure on the council to deliver, a halfway safe area where we can feel that we can walk around with our children. And this, it goes for older people as well, and everybody. So I support you, thank you, and it's really vital that we link up. It may be a no-brainer, but there are people in other roads thinking the same thing, and we need to link together.
Right. So, thank you very much. Well said, Jasmine. So, colleagues, are we all in agreement that we'll take this one? Thank you very much. That's carried. Righto. Can I invite Alistair Huggett, who's here to present a list of community infrastructure levy projects. Thank you. Alistair.
Thank you very much. At Cabinet, it was agreed that Southwark would aim to spend at least 25% of SIL. Now, SIL is the Community Infrastructure Levy. It is levied on, it's like a development tax. So every new building now pays SIL, and 25% of it is spent or aims to be spent in the local area. We've been putting together lists that have come from the community or members, and people who live, work, study in Southwark, local groups, etc., can email me and have their projects put on a draft list. What I'm asking the members to do today is, first, that we need to review the current list, and that's in the agenda papers, to ensure that all the projects are still required and the new projects suggested in the last year or so are added to the list, and also that we need to prioritise which of all the projects should go forward to get some of the funding. Now, in Appendix 2 of the report, you can see the kind of funding we're talking about now. It started very slowly. We only got about 7,000 when it first started, 6,000 the following year. But now, this year, to date, we've collected over 116,000 just in this community council area. So that's the 2 decisions I'd like members to make. Many thanks.
A lot of these projects are certainly out of date. There's a number there that are referring to the Flaxyard site where we're building new council homes, and those need to be taken out. I want to know whether or not we prioritise as a community council or we prioritise as wards and, pro rata, or whether we can add new projects to this, because this is very stale and we all haven't had a chance to look at this and to discuss possible new projects that we're on here. So, I see this as a first step in in this process, and I wonder whether or not we could bring it to the next decision-making meeting of this body, which is the next community council meeting.
I'm quite happy with that. I've been to, this is the third community council I've been to, and every community council has dealt with it slightly differently. In Appendix 2, I've shown you the breakdown of the funding per ward. If you need even more detail, we've obviously got it per development. But yes, it is something that we are still working through. We have no hard and fast rules as yet, and different community councils are looking at different ways of delivering these.
So that said, colleagues, are we happy to go away and revise the list and bring it back for the next meeting on the 17th of March? Excellent. Thank you very much. Oh. Yeah, whether we, yeah. Right. So what we could do initially is look at the projects within our own. Well, this is what I'm going to suggest. Well, I would propose, and I would suggest, unless Johnson is, are you going to speak on this, Johnson? Is that what you're indicating? So I was going to suggest that we go away and look at our own prospective wards and see what needs to be taken out, because I think we best know our own wards and which projects are dated as Barry has suggested, and then any that we think that would that cross boundaries, etc., then have that discussion before and make a decision on that. Right.
It's a cabinet decision. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think it's for us to make a list and then Cabinet decide, bearing in mind that half the Cabinet sits on this Community Council. So I guess whatever we decide will probably go forward, but strictly speaking, it's not for this body constitutionally.
So colleagues, is it reasonable to suggest that we go away and look at the projects that lie within our own prospective wards and then share that before we bring it back to Community Council? Johnson. Yes. Yes. So do you have a proposal? Oh, you've got a question. Yeah. Okay. It's on, I think. Is it? Is it currently on the website? I think
it's all in the agenda papers. So if you go, it's on. Then that's on the website.
There are spare copies of the agenda papers at the back, the table where Jill is. They're also available online with a link there. There are none? Are they all gone? Then there are some circulating.
Right. Alistair will have a word with you. But as my colleague has indicated, we can receive project ideas from members of the public too. And you could either email your members, your councillors, or again, email them directly to Alistair, who will then subsequently share that with us. All righty. But if you want to find out a little bit more about it, then, yeah, have a word with Alistair. All righty. Thank you. So, are we happy to sort of take that forward, colleagues? Thank you very much. We now move on to announcing CGS and funding awards and the devolved highways. I've got a couple of statements that I have to read out, so I'm going to head over to my sheet of paper here. And we'll start off, colleagues, with the CGS. We've got CGS, which is item 7 in your report packs, colleagues and friends. So we've got the CGS funding reallocation report. Appendix 1 on 10 shows a list of projects which have underspent or been cancelled and the resulting funding available to reallocate. This amounts to £76,450. 2 projects require extra funding. Central Ventura Park entrance feature and Surrey Canal CCTV. The funding available to add to the 2018-19 CGS programme is £72,965, and I have been told that we need to propose and second that. So do I have a proposal? Do I have a seconder? Members' agreement? Thank you very much. Moving on to item 8, Cleaner, Greener, Safer programme 2018-19. The CGS programme has been running since 2003. The amount of CGS funding awarded in Peckham and Nunhead Community Council area totals £9.1 million, and this will rise to £9.5 million with this evening's awards. So that's in total since 2003 we've awarded to projects within the community council area. A number of improvements have been delivered across the 5 wards in the last few months, including a memorial board for the World War II bombing of the corset factory on the junction of Nunhead Lane and Peckham Rye, unveiled by the Mayor of Southwark. Ledbury Estate football pen, monument repairs at Nunhead Cemetery, Gowlett Road cycle hangar, and Central Ventura Park entrance feature. And that's just a few to mention across the community council area. Groups can also manage their own projects. Grants have been awarded to St John's and St Clement's School to plant an orchard, Willowbrook Estate Planters, Brenchley Gardens, TMO to build raised vegetable beds. This year we received 538 applications across the borough compared to 450 last year. So it continues year on year being a really popular funding stream. 130 applications was received in the Peckham and Nunhead area, community council area, compared to 117 last year. The new funding is £402,857 plus any underspends. So who would like to kick off? Who would like to present the funding streams and awards for Nunhead Ward? CGS at the moment, yes. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm giving the announcements for Nunhead Ward. After those reallocations that we just agreed, we had £96,000, about £96,000 to allocate. And what we have decided is Banstead Street improvements, £3,000. Cossall Park rejuvenation project, £15,000. Kirkwood Nature Garden entrance regeneration, £20,000. Upgrades to Honiton Gardens lighting and security, £13,500. Nunhead Cemetery waste management and information project, £5,400. Brayards Community Peace Garden project, £15,000. The Cossall Estate bike store, £6,000. Paint Cossall Part 1, £2,000. The Peckham coal line first step, £5,400. Wheelie bins for Cossall, £1,000. The St Mary's Church Homework and Youth Club, £4,870, and Brabourne Grove Cycle Hangar, £5,000.
Thank you very much, Fiona. And that's a total of, £96,774. Peckham Rye Ward, who's coming up to present? Thank you, Vicky.
Thank you. So I'm announcing for Peckham Rye Ward. We are not going to award our full amount tonight. I think we have around 90,000. We're going to leave about, I think about £27,000 unallocated, because we're still in discussions about possible other funding options for some of the projects. So we will come back in March to allocate that. So tonight we are allocating £700 for the Crystal Palace bike hoop, £5,000 for bike lockers near Medina House, £5,000 for bike lockers on Rye Hill Park, £5,000 for bike lockers near Rotherhouse. Francesca Cabrini's school is their pathway, I think, isn't it, in their garden? Is that right, Renata? £4,105. Some additional storage for Athenley Football Club at Homestill Road Football Ground, £2,500. A new garden room on the Limes Walk estate, £10,585. And then the American Garden project in Peckham Rye Park, we're going to award £21,600 to. And then, sorry, some late additions, Lancefield and Glover House, a bike locker there, £5,000. And then Rye Hill Estate again, to improving the motorbike storage that is there to make it safer, £4,000.
Thank you very much, Vicky. And the Lane Wards. Jasmine?
Okay. The Lane usually, if you've been to many of these meetings, you'll know that the Lane usually try and spread the love to as many different projects as possible. But for today, I make no apologies, and neither do Jamil or Nick, that we are very focused on what we've been hearing over the last year, and that is very much around air quality and road safety. So we'll see how we go. Okay, 94,124 on CGS. We've got Peace Garden Repair and Extension, 3,240. Air Quality Inter-Schools Breather Plant Project, 3,600. And I'm pleased to say that there's also schools in Camberwell, and the Camberwell Ward have also directed money to their schools so that they can link up with ours on air quality. Heron House, gating and fencing, 6,500. Creed House, communal area improvement, 9,000. Habitat planting and lighting, 5,400. McDermott Grove Garden Sculpture Installation Improvements, 3,135. The Crab Consort Railway Arch Bridge, 12,000. Elm Roof Repairs and Renewal, 9,500. The Villa Zebra Crossing, part funded, 2,810. Speed reduction measures on Silla Road, 10,000. And then we've got bike hangers, and we tried to oblige everyone, really, because we're serious about getting into different modes of transport. So bike hangers for Telford Road, Nutbrook Court, Bellenden Road, Bushy Hill Road, and Reedham Road. So that's it from the Lane. Thank you.
Thank you. And that comes to a total of £90,185. So that concludes decisions on the CGS. And now I've got a little, moving on to item 9. I've got a little introduction here for the Devolved Highways Budget Programme overview. This is the first year that applications have been invited from residents and local community groups for improvements to non-principal roads in their area. In late 2016, Council Cabinet agreed to change the terms of the Devolved Highway Budget so it can be spent on any non-strategic capital highway scheme, as well as resurfacing of carriageways and footways. Proposals that can now be funded through the programme include cycle hangers, so there's a bit of overlay there, traffic calming, accessibility improvements, drop curbs, localised repairs, and tree planting or other on-street greening. All approved projects will be managed by the Council's highway engineers. 33 applications were received in the Peckham and Nunhead Community Council area. Total funding available is £342,855 or £76,190 per ward. So, if we could have the decision-making for the devolved highways budget, Nunhead ward. Fiona, thank you.
Thank you, Cleo. And Nunhead is continuing the theme about bikes and safety around schools. We are allocating £10,000 for 2 bike hangers on Ansdale Road, where there's a lot of demand. £12,000 for a crossing build-out at Woods Road by John Dunn School. And £54,000, I think that's a zebra crossing facility at Hollydale, Gibbon Road Junction by Hollydale Primary School.
Thank you very much. And that comes to a total of £76,000, and there's available budget left of £190. Peckham Y ward, Vicky?
More bikes and bike storage and school safety here. So Memora Road bike hanger, £5,000. Hitchison Road bike hanger, £5,000. Waveney Road bike hanger, £5,000. We haven't awarded to the gardens, if anybody's here from there, because there is already money from last year for a bike hanger that still hasn't been used. And then Underhill Road and Dunstan's Road Junction. At this stage, we're going to award £10,000 to a traffic study. This is a major route to Goodridge School, and we think it could be safer. So awarding £10,000 initially, with a view that we might award some of our unallocated money to improvements there in March. And then Honour Oak Rise, part funding the resurfacing. We're going to allocate £8,235.33, and I think that leaves us with around £43,000 still to allocate at the March meeting.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Vicky. And the Lane ward, Jasmine, if you care to come up.
Okay, thanks, Chair. We're going to we've got 25,000 for Avondale Rise, Bellenden Road Junction, to design improvements. You know the junction near Maxted Road and Avondale Rise. So we've put 25,000, and we're also working in a connected road with Camberwell, who will also put some money to make that road a bit safer. The other bit of money that we're paying for is the Villa Zebra Crossing, £51,190. The total allocated is £76,190. I did want to announce that we've got Albert Ang, our officer from Southwark, and thanks to him, because I know that there were bids to have a zebra crossing at Maxted Road, but I've been working with Albert for the last maybe 2 or 3 years, it feels like that, but we have now announced that there will be a zebra crossing at Maxted Road, and the money won't come from this, it will come from the money of the gyratory. So thanks for that, and I understand Albert said that that work should start and finish around Easter this year. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. And once again, friends from the community, thank you very much for submitting all your applications. It's always a really, really difficult decision for us to make, and we try and be as fair as much as possible, and try and identify projects which are sort of quite unique and that provide a shared balance across all our wards, etc. And I hope that you think that we've been sort of successful in that objective this year. As always, there are alternative funding streams which our community engagement officers can support you with, so please do get in contact with them, or in fact in touch with us, and we look forward to your applications next year, the next funding stream cycle. May I remind you that if you've got an idea for a devolved highway project, infrastructure levy project, I beg your pardon, then don't hesitate to come and either speak to any one of the ward councillors this evening, or get in touch with Alistair direct. I'd also, just before we go on to community announcements, I'd also like to welcome and identify the presence of Emily Murray for the Link Age Southwark stand. We've got a number of stands at the rear of this space of the hall this evening. We've got Chimney from De Silva from the Southwark Health Watch, and as I've already mentioned, we've got Alicia. So do, during the course of the meeting, go up and speak to them and say hello and pick up any additional literature that you require. Moving on to community announcements, we've got Paula Orr from Peckham Vision. Paula? There you are.
Thanks very much for letting me just make an announcement. Peckham Vision is working with the Southwark Law Centre and the Southwark Planning Network to offer some workshops on the new Southwark Plan. I know the new Southwark Plan's been brought to this meeting before several times. It's now at the stage where it's on the last consultation, the consultation on the final plan. This is the final version that the Council aims to submit to the Government for the examination in public between June and possibly November 2018. So it's really your last chance to comment on this vital plan, which sets the framework for planning decisions for the next 15 or 20 years. So in order to help people prepare their submissions, we are organising this series of workshops, which has already started. The ones that are coming up, I've got some leaflets here if people want to know exactly the dates and the places, but there's one on Thursday the 25th, which is more for Elephant and Castle. The next one near here is the Tuesday 30th of January at Cambridge House in Camberwell, and there will be one on the Monday the 5th of February at the Peckham Vision office in the Bussey building, the Bussey studio. So really welcome you, any of you, to come along. We've got people coming from the Law Centre who can give you advice on how you're framing your submission to make sure that it's as strong as possible. And just to emphasise that only people and organisations who submit a written observation at this stage will be able to be invited to make representations to the examination in public. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, if we've already submitted comments, can we have a second go?
Yes, certainly. You can, and thank you, Derek, for that question. It's really useful because I forgot to say a very important point is that the final deadline for submitting your comments, observations was the 12th of February, but it's now been extended to the 27th of February. So you've got plenty of time. If you want to add to your submissions, you can send. There's an online submission form, but you can also send comments to the planning department, so you can say I'd like to add to those comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Paula. Thank you very much. Is Albert Ang here? Albert, you're very welcome. On Southwark Spine website strategy.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Albert Ang. I'm the project manager for the Southwark Spine. Southwark Spine, it is a north-south walking and cycling route from Borough to East Dunwich, and basically today I just want to talk about briefly the consultation results. We went up for consultation November last year, and we held a drop-in session. We sent out about just over 7,000 leaflets to the people in the area, and we received a high response of over 460 responses. Within the Peckham Nunhead ward, there was over 40% positive response and around 34% negative. So overall was more positive than negative, and the rest of it is the remainder they had no real comment. So overall, some of the things that we could do to improve the area was to provide for more segregation for cyclists, improving junctions, and managing traffic and speed volumes more in the area. So we'll be looking at that into more detail and updating, reviewing the comments that everyone put in into more detail and complete our design essentially. So what's next is we're going to be putting forward recommendations this year for decision as to how we proceed, and including all the comments that were provided to us. And then if everything goes well, we're going to do another round of consultation, which is statutory consultation, towards spring 2018, and hopefully aim for construction in winter 2019. That will be followed by monitoring the performance of cycle and pedestrian usage and public transport around the area. And before, as Ali mentioned, we have been working hard with her to fast track where we can, and one of the rather than wait a year from now, we managed to pull forward Maxhead zebra crossing, which was really good, and hopefully we'll get that done in Easter. If you have any other questions, if you want to know more about the project, I'll be here in the upcoming break. Me and my manager will be here, so feel free to talk to me.
Thank you very much indeed. Is there anyone else that would like to make an announcement? Are there any forthcoming events that you wish to highlight? No? What we'll do, I've clawed back some time, so we'll take a quick break before we move on to the themed section of our meeting this evening. Given that the focus is on healthy eating, please take advantage of the fruit which is on offer as opposed to biscuits, and have a quick comfort break, and we'll resume at 8:15. 8:15. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your 1 minute warning. If you could all take your seats, I'd be really, really grateful. Thank you.
Valentine's Week? Yes. Okay. Oh, it's nice. Oh, righty. But you're still here, aren't you? Yeah.
Yeah. Really good to see you, Heather. Did you have any projects that were announced this evening? No. Oh, you did. Well, oh, no. Ladies and gentlemen, if we could resume, I'd be really, really grateful so we could all leave on time this evening. If members could take their seats. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd just like to invite Councillor Fiona Colley. She's just got a quick announcement to make, something which you should be really made aware of. I'd be grateful, members, if you could return to your seats, if we could lower the chatter. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Hi, Emily. Right, over to you, Fiona.
Thanks, Cleo. Now, if you live near this, you will have already had a flyer, and it's been a bit on social media, but just to let people know, the council is proposing to build a new council office on the corner of Queen's Road and Asylum Road. It'll bring together our homelessness and children's social care buildings and services into a single, much higher quality building. It's currently spread across, I think, 5 or 6 buildings across Peckham. There's a consultation drop-in where you can see the design proposals on Thursday the 25th of January at the Council's existing Queen's Road offices on the corner of Lugard Road and Queen's Road. The drop-in will be open any time between 9 AM and 8:30 PM with council staff there to explain things, and the architects, I think. Those plans will also be available at the office all of that week if Thursday doesn't suit, and be going online at southwark.gov.uk/QR office consultation.
Fantastic. Thank you very much indeed. So please do get yourselves involved and engaged in that and have your say. Moving on to the sort of forum side, the theme side of our meeting. I trust you've all had a good break and are suitably watered and took advantage of the fruit that's there to consume. Our theme for this evening's meeting is facing the challenges of health and social care, and as you know, it's something which is really sort of topical. It's in the news at the moment, and we're really lucky here, not only within our own community council area, because we've got a number of cabinet members, as you well know, that have that come with a series of expertise from their respective portfolios and departments, but amongst which is Councillor Vicky Mills, who is responsible for children, cabinet member for children and schools, and is the chair of the corporate parenting committee. But we also have here this evening a cabinet member, Councillor Maisie Anderson, cabinet member for public health and social regeneration. So I thought it would be quite apt, given that we're going to look at a number of elements. Now, you know, for each of the topics that are going to be touched upon this evening, we could actually hold a whole meeting on. So this is just to sort of give you a flavour of what we're doing here in the council to address the topics which we are going to discuss this evening. We've got Noel Baxter, who's a GP, Clinical Director for Quality and Service Improvement, and he's going to sort of give us his perspective from the NHS point of view. We've got Cathy Duplessis from Southwark Pensioners Centre, and she's going to touch upon dementia and services around the elderly and post-hospital care, and share some of the experiences that she has and some of the services that she delivers within her brief and her role at the Southwark Pensioners Centre. And then got a good pal of mine, a teacher, Laura James, who has had experience here in Southwark as a primary school teacher, but has now moved on to the virtual school for looked after children. And as long as I've been a councillor, I've never sat at a community council meeting that has discussed and talked about corporate parenting and fostering and adopting, and what happens from an educational perspective. And I just thought, again, that would be something that you might be sort of interested in and wish to learn a little bit more about. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome and introduce you to my good colleague, Councillor Maisie Anderson, Cabinet Member for Public Health and Social Regeneration. Maisie.
Thank you, Cleo. Thanks very much for having me here this evening, and thank you to those of you who stayed for this hugely important part of the meeting, even though I know it's a weekday evening. So as Cleo said, I'm responsible for public health and also for social regeneration in conjunction with my colleague, one of your local councillors, Johnson Situ. I thought I'd focus really on the public health element, given that that's the theme of this forum this evening, and I'll keep my comments somewhat brief and kind of just give you an overview, because I know there's a few other speakers as well, and I'm happy to take questions at the end of this section as well if you have any. So just to kind of explain what public health is and how it's distinct from the NHS and kind of the health service, public health really kind of looked at population-wide health issues. So it has a population focus, and it's sort of about the wider determinants of health, as opposed always to kind of treating specific ailments, although there are some kind of caveats to that. And public health is actually quite new as a responsibility for local government. So it came back to local government in 2013, and it actually hadn't been in local government since the 1970s. So that's kind of a sort of a generation away from local government, but it's come back to local government. And I think that presented a lot of really great opportunities for public health and to improve the health of local residents, because as local authorities, who better to kind of focus on population-wide health issues, we have an ability to sort of shape services to meet local needs in a really unique way. So I think those of us that love local government were very excited that public health came back into our area of responsibility. And since Southwark has had public health, the borough's been extremely bold, I think. We've been really bold in our vision for what that means and for the opportunities that are available to have public health within local government. So we've been very, very ambitious, and we've rolled out some really large and quite high-profile public health campaigns and schemes. In particular, ones you might already know about would be the free healthy school meals for all primary school children in the borough, and free fruit as well. And then more recently, I had the honour of launching our free swim and gym programme, which has been a really bold and totally visionary public health programme, if I say so myself, and has been hugely successful. More than 1 in 6 Southwark residents have now signed up for free swim and gym, really high attendances, in particular from women and from BME residents. So really, really exciting that scheme, that we were able to launch it, but also that it's been so popular amongst our residents. So just to give you a quick overview of what we do with public health in the borough, I thought it would be useful just to outline what the 5 biggest areas of spend are for public health, because that kind of gives you an idea of what we do and also what our key challenges are. So the biggest area of spend in Southwark for public health is sexual health. So that's part of the public health arena. So when I said there are a few caveats, so we don't, it's not about treating specific ailments. When it comes to sexual health, there's a prevention element, but there is a treatment element there as well. The second biggest spend we have in our public health budget is health visiting. The third is substance misuse work, so that's drugs and alcohol treatment in particular. The fourth biggest spend is our free healthy school meals and free fruit programme in primary schools. And finally, the fifth single biggest area of spend for us is school nursing. So that kind of gives you an idea of where our priorities are and also what our challenges are, and in particular with sexual health services, the way that they're run, the open access nature, but also our population has led to it being our biggest single spend. So I just thought I'd just then outline, before handing over and asking for questions as well, kind of outline 3 areas that in my role, I've been privileged to have this role for 2 years now, so what I've really focused on, what's kind of jumped out to me as some of our biggest challenges, our biggest opportunities, and the things that I've tried to focus on myself. And number 1, I didn't mention this, but under public health would fall air quality. So a number of us in the Cabinet look at air quality from different perspectives, from a regulatory perspective, from a transport perspective, but I look at it from a public health perspective. And it has to be said that in London it's a public health crisis. Our air quality is very, very poor, especially in particular areas, and there are parts of this borough where our air quality is really, really poor, not acceptable, and we regularly breach EU air quality limits in our borough, as lots of boroughs do across London, and that, for me, is not acceptable. We have a degree of control in the local authority, and we're doing a lot of work. We have a really exciting action plan, a new one for air quality, that we signed off last year, and that's got 113 different actions that we're taking as a local authority to try and turn this around. But also, this isn't something that we can only control in Southwark. It's a London-wide issue, it's a national issue, and frankly, it's an international issue, because pollution can even blow from mainland Europe over London. So we also engage with regional and national government. I myself have written quite a few angry letters very recently to our national government, saying that this is not good enough, that they need to grasp the nettle, and that this cannot be kicked into the long grass, because especially the health of our children in this borough is at risk, and it's not, their excuses are not acceptable anymore. The other thing we've spent a lot of money and time and effort on in Southwark is promoting active travel and installing charging points for low emission vehicles, and you heard about the Southwark Spine earlier, but improvements to pedestrian and cycling routes in the borough has to be part of the solution as well. So that's air quality, a challenge but also an opportunity, and I'm determined that during the course of my lifetime London's air quality is going to get better, not worse, because I'm pretty sure that since I was born it's actually got worse. The second challenge, but something that we do a lot of work on as well, is to do with obesity, and in particular childhood obesity, which is a really pressing issue in Southwark. So we know, to talk about childhood obesity, that at the moment 26% of the children in Southwark at reception age have excess weight, so that's either they are overweight or obese, and by year 6, 43% of the children in this borough have excess weight. when I first took on this portfolio and I heard that, it was just sort of like alarm bells ringing. Again, this is a national, international and national crisis for us, but in Southwark, the crisis is particularly acute. And there's not one single solution to that. We live in what's known as an obesogenic environment, so when you walk down a lot of the high streets in London, it's very difficult to make a healthy food choice. And we all live very busy lives. There are families who live very, very busy lives and also don't have a huge amount of resources to spend a lot of money on food. So there are a lot of challenges. We're doing a huge amount of work in the public health team in Southwark to take what's called in the public health world a whole systems approach. So I think there's an acceptance that that everybody needs to play their part, be that schools, be that the local authority, be that the voluntary sector, be that businesses, to try and turn this around. We focus on things at the earliest levels, things like promoting breastfeeding and healthy weaning for the smallest Southwark residents, to school-based activities, and obviously we've got free healthy school meals, and also we've got some powers through planning. So we're going to have a planning exclusion zone around secondary schools for the opening of new fast food takeaways, for example. So that's one way that we can try and turn things around a bit in our borough. And I know I said I'd only speak for a couple of minutes, so my final point, I touched on it before, is sexual health. So you might have thought, gosh, your biggest single spend in Southwark is sexual health. Sometimes people are quite surprised by that. In London, we've got the second highest rates of sexually transmitted infections, the first highest, not that that's a badge of honour, but that's Lambeth, our next door neighbour borough. And largely it's a function of our population. We've got a very young, international, diverse population, and also really mobile population. Partly that's what makes Southwark and Lambeth such wonderful parts of the city, but it presents challenges as well. Even though that sounds like a bad thing that we're second highest rates, our rates are actually year on year going down. So I think what we're doing is working, but there's still a lot more work to be done. So we invest in prevention programs, very specific kind of education programs for certain communities, and we've also got a really exciting online sexual health service now that's been running for a few years in Lambeth and Southwark, and it's hugely successful. So people can just order sexual health testing kits online, get it delivered to wherever works for them. It's all anonymous, and it's a way of people kind of keeping healthy. And also it frees up then our clinics for people who have more specific needs, so that the kind of worried well can just keep themselves well away from clinic, and we can spend that money in a more targeted way. And finally, just to touch on teenage pregnancy, which also falls under the kind of sexual health bracket, we can report that since 1997 in Southwark, there's been a 72% reduction in teenage pregnancy. So that's another area that we've done a huge amount of work on in this borough. So I'll leave it at that, but I hope that gives you kind of an overview of what public health is in Southwark, what we spend our time working on and are spending Southwark money on. Lots of challenges, but also lots of really exciting success stories, and I'm sure the borough will continue to be bold and ambitious with its public health vision in future years.
Fantastic. Are there any questions for Maisie? I mean, Maisie, since we've introduced the free school helping meals, is there any evidence to show that the obesity rate is going down? Is the trajectory going down? Is there any evidence for that?
So public health data is collected kind of not as regularly as other bits of data, so you have to kind of wait for quite a few years to actually spot a trend. The figures last year for Southwark were marginally better than in previous years. They were. But I think the thing with any of these childhood obesity measures is that it's the long haul approach. It takes many, many years to see the benefits. And I think the idea behind the healthy school meals, it's not only about the fact that our Southwark children will be eating a healthy lunch every day, it's also about kind of promoting eating habits, sitting down at a table with your friends, talking, eating, not in front of the TV, or just kind of that focus on a kind of healthy approach to food more widely. So hopefully some of that will filter through, and that as adults, the children that are now having these meals will kind of have that as part of their educational experience. But it's one of those things, I think, we just have to stick to our guns and just keep going, and it might be in 10 or 15 years that we actually start to really see those trends coming through. But yeah.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else that would like to raise a question? Can you say who you are and... yeah.
My name is Anne Lewis. You said that you are going to remove a lot of the fast food from around school. What are you likely to replace them with?
Well, with this planning exclusion zone, that I think is what you're referring to, it's not that we don't have the power to remove anything that's already there. It's about when people put in applications to open new fast food outlets around schools for 200 metres, that will not be permitted under our planning policy. So the environment as is as is. It's about preventing kind of clusters of fast food outlets opening around schools, if that makes sense. So the power is about sort of the future and what might open in the future as opposed to how things are currently.
Hi, my name is Anne Salifu from Pennock Road, TRA. Everything that you've just outlined, is it on the web? Like what you do with health, swimming, gym, all of that, is it on the website?
Yeah, I think, to my knowledge, not everything is grouped under a kind of public health band, but there's certainly, if you're interested in air quality, we have our air quality sort of hub on the Southwark website. If you're interested in free swim and gym, there's certainly, that's available on the Southwark website and also on the Everyone Active website. So they're the organisation that run our Southwark leisure centres. But certainly, if you go onto the website and use that search function, you should be able to find information about everything I've talked about. But certainly on air quality, we were asked repeatedly, where is everything? So we've put it all together. So if you want to see the grumpy letters that I've written to national government, you can click and see them. If you want to see our air quality action plan, it's there, all in one place. And free swim and gym as well, certainly go through the website, find the link, and all the registration details should be there.
And if you just type in the keyword that you're interested in, it should then just pop up. All right, follow the links. I'll take one more, but just because I'm conscious of time. One more question to Maisie, or comment. So.
Yeah, no, but just for benefit of the audience. Today I thought you were going to talk about health and social care. I know you've brushed on some issues that might link into that. I just wondered, when you come out of the unemployment office, sometimes you meet one or two individuals outside, and they try to encourage people to go on these courses that are run in Holborn, West End. And I went down there today, and I was unable to find a centre. I know I'm at fault because I didn't look at my GPS on my mobile phone. But I tried to ring them and I couldn't get through to the centre. These people stand outside the unemployment office trying to get people to get on the call. So I came along today, and I distribute leaflets for whoever sends them to me, and I distribute them on the estates to try to encourage more people to come to this meeting. That's why I'm speaking, okay, and that's why I'm here. But I don't usually come to this. And the point I'm trying to make is I came here because the issue that you were all interested in, well, my understanding, according to what was written on the leaflet, was that people were interested in this health and social care issue. So I came along because I was interested in social work and caring in the community for the elderly, or even in childcare centres, or in a centre for children where, like, family care units where families break down or kids are separated from their parents. Now I came here because of that reason, to see how what you're doing would relate to them. See, so I'm a bit troubled, really, that
What can I say? Well, it's as you've already outlined, it's such a vast area of interest. We do have somebody here from the Southwark Pensioners Centre. We'll talk about elderly care. We've got a GP. And we've got another couple of guests. So perhaps Well, we're going through the meeting now, so hopefully you'll glean something from it. And if not, then perhaps you can come and see me at the end, and we can either forward some information to you, or if not, we can certainly think about prioritising. Yes. Yes. Well. Yes, yeah, and Vicky's going to present anyway, and yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you, Maisie.
Thank you.
Moving on. Yes, indeed. Yeah, absolutely. And now can I introduce you to Noel Baxter. He's a GP and Clinical Director for Quality and Service Improvement. Noel, you're very welcome.
Thank you. Thanks very much for inviting me this evening. As it's about health and social care. A really good idea to have someone from health. So I'm a GP in Southwark. I've worked in Southwark as a GP since 2002. And my role in the commissioning group is particularly around improving quality. So that will be in the health services that we commission, which are the two main hospitals for Lambeth and Southwark, which is King's College Hospital and Guy's and St Thomas's, but also the community services, and more recently we are responsible for ensuring the quality of general practice as well. So we don't have very much time to talk about this. I was asked to talk about the challenges in the NHS, so you can probably just go to the BBC website and find out about that. So maybe if you want to ask me some of the things that are particularly concerning you about the health offer in Southwark and what you think the issues might be, then that would be something that I will attempt to answer. I think the areas that I specifically have expertise in is around working with King's and Guy's and St Thomas's to ensure that patient experience is good, that it is a safe place to go, and that they are also clinically effective, so that they do the right thing with the resources they've got. So that's particularly what I'm interested in, and also around safeguarding adults and children. So those are my particular areas. In terms of where our main focus is at the moment, then, I mean, it's great that Maisie spent the time explaining what the priorities are in Southwark, because of course there are priorities too, because in the CCG it's, we're spending money on the same residents. So unfortunately what we're doing currently in health is spending too much money down the end of the pathway when we haven't done the good diet, getting people physically active, ensuring people are breathing in fresh air. So we absolutely and strongly support and work very closely with public health, and those really are very much our priorities too. The 5-year forward view that was set by NHS England 3 years ago absolutely advocates much more in terms of prevention, much more in terms of earlier diagnosis and taking action earlier, and also taking action with people, not delivering to people. So a huge amount of the work that we're certainly doing at the moment is exploring how we put systems in place to ensure that we support people to take control of very often long-term conditions and enable people to make best decisions for themselves, absolutely supported by health professionals. About long-term conditions, there's a very long list of them, the common ones and those that are priority areas for us. So severe mental illness is very important.
Sorry. Can you just allow Noel to finish, and then I've got a number of individuals in the audience that have already. But you'll have an opportunity. Yeah. So we in order. So just allow him to finish, and then I'll come to you. You're the fourth person that's indicated I'd like to speak. All right. But I'd be grateful if you don't interrupt him, because I will come to you. Yeah. Yeah. I'll give you every opportunity to make your point. No. Hello, I've got the mic. Excuse me. Hi, I've got the mic. I've got the mic. Thank you. Right. No. Thank you. No, Noel, if you can continue, please. Thank you.
So the long-term conditions that really matter to us in Southwark and cause problems for people that live in this borough and also cost a lot of money, severe mental illness, so that's in children and in adults. Mental illness more broadly, ensuring that children get the best start in life by having the best opportunities to have good mental health. And then we have physical illnesses such as diabetes. So Maisie spoke about obesity. So by dealing with obesity in our children, we will certainly be dealing with reducing the problem later on in life for people in terms of having problems with blindness, kidney disease, that sort of thing. So diabetes is a big issue for us. Respiratory illness, so diseases of the lungs, is really important. Asthma is a common disease everywhere, but obviously in places with poor air quality or children being exposed to tobacco smoke or other smoke drugs is going to increase the problem of asthma too. The consequence of having asthma or being exposed to industrial pollutants or air pollution is that then over time, because our children are going to be living a very, very long time, we've got to get their lungs to full maturity, and then it needs to last them 100 years. So we have a real challenge in making sure that our children avoid serious infections in their lungs so their lungs stay well. So vaccination is very important in that respect, and to make sure that people are able to keep their lungs healthy. So those are some of the key areas that we do in terms of long-term condition, as well as obviously heart attacks, which has been a big priority area for a long time now.
We'll take questions now. Thank you. We've got Fiona, followed by Johnson. Do you still? Right. Tony, and then our friend over there.
Thank you, Cleo. The news is very heavily dominated by the financial crisis at King's College Hospital.
Well, what surprise you're asking me that.
And I wanted to ask you a little bit about what reassurance you can give us about the quality of healthcare, with obviously concerns about growing waiting times at A&E and the hospital being completely full, but also about what impact that might have on the funding available to local health services to try to move the way that we spend our money towards prevention and wellness rather than the acute end of treatment.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll answer the first part first of all. So I meet with colleagues at King's College every month, twice a month, once to look at clinical quality from various perspectives, and another time to look at any serious incidents that happen in the hospital to ensure that we put mitigations in place to prevent it happening again. And I've been doing that now for about 3.5 years, so I have a pretty good sense of the attention to patient safety, to clinical effectiveness, and patient experience. It's important to say that the special measures for King's is around their financial situation, and it has got nothing to do with their quality. Quality does get measured by the Care Quality Commission, and King's was regarded as needed improvement 3 years ago. They've had a recent visit. They have absolutely improved on lots of different measures. Because they weren't examined in their entirety this time round, but on the things from last time, they won't yet get a good, but they're certainly moving very close to that, and I'm sure they will next time they're fully investigated. We have a very strong leadership team from the medical director, those below them, and a very excellent chief nurse at the moment who's really making differences. So we have good oversight on that, and I would reassure you that the financial situation is not impacting on quality, but you can be assured that we're keeping a very close eye on that. The other question was really about how do we, as I said at the beginning, stop spending at the high cost end. And I think, you know, the solution to that is going to be how we increasingly work together with the local authority and particularly with public health to be clear about what our priorities are, to enact the 5-year forward view, which is increasingly about prevention, more about earlier diagnosis, and more about helping people to also look after themselves. So it is going to require a different expenditure. One of the processes that we're going through at the moment is looking at the population who have these long-term conditions which we mentioned, and specifically working with those people so that they are cared for in the community proactively before things go wrong, helping them to control flare-ups of their conditions so we reduce that going into the hospital. It will require very kind of close working with our local authority and public health colleagues so that we can ensure that whilst we can't not spend at the high end while people are still getting sick, that we gradually move things further upstream, and it's absolutely a commitment to the CCG to do that.
As a patient to a doctor, I've been going to doctors for many years, obviously. And the doctor turns around and says to me, "Oh, well, you saw Dr. Smith last time, and now you come and see me about something." So you tend to stick with the same doctor. But now I've come up to this idea that when you ring up in the morning, you'll speak to a doctor, possibly a doctor will ring you back, ask you whether you should see a doctor, and then you could see any old doctor. And I think to myself, what a waste of time, because they don't really get to know what's going on with you, which is a waste of time. You then have to normally go back a second time. So the actual thing of it is a waste of money.
So I couldn't agree with you more that continuity of care is absolutely the thing that is a real gem about general practice. And the system that I was talking about before, which is beginning to stratify our population. You need to remember that in Southwark, 30% of people who were registered with a GP at the beginning of the year will no longer be registered with the Southwark GP at the end of the year. So for a very, very large part, we are working with people in Southwark who come for one issue, need to see a competent doctor, nurse, physician's associate, pharmacist, whoever, who can solve the problem, and then they go on their way. So continuity is less important there. What is important there is good notes and knowing the patient's history, which can be done through notes. However, there are other people who have multiple long-term conditions, and the idea is that that particular group of people has a care coordinator, and it might be a GP, it could be somebody else, but the idea is that we have ownership, joint ownership of the care of those patients, and you have connectivity and continuous care with that particular group. Now, you will find that general practice will be at a much bigger scale, and that will absolutely be happening over the next few years. However, the scale provides an opportunity to have GPs who particularly specialise in looking after people who have predominantly respiratory problems or predominant severe mental illness problems. You'll have people with greater expertise who will spend more of their time looking after a smaller cohort of patients. So rather than trying to look after 1,800, they might look after 200 and have a really good relationship. I think the important thing is that not everybody in Southwark needs the same continuity, so we do need to stratify.
Thank you.
We're not there yet, which is why you're experiencing that. Yeah.
Okay, right. First of all, my name's Fatima, right? I've already told you I'm here. The point what disturbs me most today is that this gentleman keeps going on about a long-term illness, and the thing that I'm trying to tell you is, I don't know if you know. Do you know anything about me?
No.
You don't?
No.
Are you telling me the truth?
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. Because some people assume that I'm mentally ill, and I'm not. Okay, I'm probably one of the most intelligent people among some of the most intelligent people in this country, right, or in this community at the moment. But I'm under-resourced, and I've come from a very poor background. I'm not from a middle-class background, okay? So I might not be as articulate as some of you people, but when I come to this meeting here, I don't usually come to this. What I'm trying to tell you, I went to the West End today to try and book on a course because I've been unemployed for a long time. So I went to the West End to say, I'll get on a course because I've been looking for work for a long time. Okay, the question is, how do I, because I've got about 11 points on this piece of paper. The main question is, because of technology and how things have advanced, everybody's communicating by the laptop. I'm unable to get a laptop. I might have the money to get a laptop computer, but I can't buy one at the moment because I need a rent card. It hasn't been issued. I need my money. But listen to what I'm trying to tell you. What I'm saying now links up with health. The issue today, main issue, is health and social care. When all these problems mount up, it contributes to sickness in society. Now, I'm not going to say I'm going to fall ill because I'm not going to let that happen. But then I've got to be strong for it, and I'm not allowed to get angry. So I've got to ask the good Lord to guide me, keep me, to be sane. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? So I've got problems that I'm hoping will be resolved by the time I leave this meeting.
I've got a colleague, Johnson, who just wants to say a few words because he's, I don't know what he's going to ask, but I know he's or comment he's going, but it's in your portfolio capacity.
So just thank you for the question. Just to come back on a couple of points you've just said. So in terms of access to computers, we have a number of libraries, and if you're a Southwark resident, I'm happy to have a conversation with you afterwards. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So thank you. So I'm more than happy. I know Councillor Livingston will be able to have a chat with you up there, and I'm more than happy to have a conversation as well.
Can I ask a question of Noel? So I think I'm right in saying that a quarter of GP practices in Southwark either require improvement or are inadequate. One of those is in my ward. It's Forest Hill Road GP practice. People are very concerned. So as I have you here, it's really just to ask, what assurance can you give to me and I think the 12,000 patients who are registered there that surgery is definitely on the road to improvement?
So, yeah, you're absolutely right. So I think there was a survey that was done last year, and I think Southwark was in the top 10 worst performing CCGs in England in terms of quality of general practice as adjudicated by CQC. We have lost some practices, and it was entirely appropriate that we lost those practices because they were not providing good quality of care and it wasn't safe. I've worked at Forest Hill as a locum, and I know some of the doctors in Forest Hill as well. The quality of care by the doctors there is very good. They definitely need help with organisational structure. Every single practice has a very different reason for why they have needed improvement or why they've been put in special measures. We have had practices that have been in special measures that have now moved out and being classified as good. So most recently, that's right. I am a respiratory expert actually, but they, so Bermondsey Spa, so they've become government. So, and the way that practices move from being in special measures or needs improvement is they get external support. So when we get a rating from CQC, we contact the members of the team in the CCG who are able to provide specific support. So if there's issues around safeguarding or safety as part of the CQC, then members of my quality team will then go out and work to ensure that the systems are in place to address that. So we have a very robust program where we support practices. We also use resources from the Royal College of General Practice as well, and the local medical committee also has resource to help practices. So absolutely, where we can, we will support practices to get back on track. Some practices, Falmouth Road, for example, are under caretaking arrangements by high quality general practice at scale organisations like AT Medics, for example, who put in systems that are really robust, and you really see the change. So we are going to have to go through quite a bit of pain before we sort this all out. But in Southwark, actually, we are dealing with a historic problem, and we have put a lot of things into place. We probably have one of the best, well-developed federations of general practice in London, and and it would absolutely compare well with the rest of England. And the federations who do look after population health and work with members. So we have a North and a South Federation of GPs who absolutely are there to help practices achieve the standards that should be happening for everybody in Southwark. So I think we've got a lot in place for the future, and I'm quite positive and hopeful about it. And I think if any of you seen the doctors coming to work in Southwark at our monthly practice learning time, you'd see some really talented, committed, good values doctors.
Thank you, Noel. Noel, I've just got three more, and they're really members of the public, our audience, that would like to ask you questions. I'm going to allow you, because it's fascinating, and clearly the interest is here for us to look at this topic later on in the year. I've got three. I've got Sunil, I've got Maureen, and Matthew. If you could keep your comments or questions really short, and similarly, Noel, I'll be really grateful.
Yeah, no,
I'll take the three, and then if you can
yeah.
incorporate your response.
Yeah.
Right, so Maureen, very quickly.
I'd just like to ask, I think it's a problem for most people probably sitting here. If you go to your GP to see your resident doctor, if it's a long-term thing you're going for, sometimes you can't get booking to see him. He might not be available for 2 or 3 weeks, so you get another GP. No. So the first thing, when you walk into the room, he'll say to you, "How can I help you?" Just a touch of a button. You've only got 10 minutes per patient. You've got to, time you go through what you're there for, it's over. The same thing with the hospitals. When you go to the hospital, if you don't see the main man you're meant to see, the surgeon or the top doctor you're meant to see, you see his understudy, how can I help you? And I find it doesn't work.
Okay, thank you. Just hold that there. Matthew?
Thanks. Just a comment, I guess I'm a firm advocate of the prevention being better than cure as well. You mentioned you've got ambitions to work with the local authority, but are there opportunities for more grassroots organisations to get involved with the work that you're doing? Is there any examples that you've done? And a second quick question, I guess the work you're doing is research-based. Which communities are more severely impacted by lack of knowledge in terms of healthy eating and living healthy lifestyles?
Thank you, Matthew. And Sunil.
Short one. If a doctor's surgery closed down due to his retirement or any other reason, and the patient moved from A surgery to B or C surgery, and if they're not happy, and there is another doctor who is willing to open a surgery into same place, what facilities, what helps you are willing to provide them so patient can come back to that area so they feel more happy?
Okay. I feel that probably the question that you have asked, I think predominantly we answered it with the question that you asked. I know what you mean. You sort of want people to know what's wrong with you, and I think we are trying to get to that point. Yeah, exactly. yeah, everyone can't have that. Better notes, you owning your notes, you coming in and saying, okay, doctor, this is what I would like you to do for me today, which is where we would really like to get to. Okay, so. But I guess what I'm saying is that we want to move towards a very different way of working, where those that need continuity of care will get it, so you don't have that situation. Those who don't need it won't get it, because unfortunately we've got the same offer for everybody. We need to stratify in order to do that.
Maureen, can I ask if you need any further elaboration on that, to see Noel at the end of the meeting? Matthew's question around, are you doing any research, and how are you collaborating with the local authority?
Well, we do collaborate with the local authority. There's the Health and Wellbeing Board, but I know what you're saying. Do we work with local organisations in order to plan? Absolutely. So our engagement team, whenever we look at commissioning something new, will engage with local community groups in order to find out what it is that they want before we start to enact in it. We will work with charity groups as well, who represent the voice of people with particular conditions. If the organisation that you're representing or you would like us to know more about, then do contact Rosemary at Southwark CCG, who is our engagement lead, to ensure that she's got your details, because we absolutely fundamentally have to work with people who are going to use the service or have the problem in order to provide the right service. And then the last question is, so if a practice closed down, if it's less than, I think, 6,000 patient list size, then the list becomes dispersed and they will move to a nearby practice, because it is possible to disperse a list size like that within the capacity that we've got. If it is greater than 6,000, then it goes out to an open and competitive tender, and that will be put up on the kind of procurement, NHS procurement website, which people can then go and see.
Thank you very much, Noel. That was pretty comprehensive, and clearly you've generated enough interest within this room this evening, and for us to sort of revisit it perhaps later on in the year, but very well done. Thank you. Can I now introduce you? I know most of you are familiar with her. Kathy from Southwark Pensioners Centre is going to tell you a little bit about her role and the service which she delivers within the centre and the organisation. Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you. So I'm from Southwark Pensioners Centre. We're a charity that provides a fairly wide range of services and activities for people over the age of 50. Our offer to the community is really in 5 sections. The first is we have a very vibrant health and wellbeing programme, so we do a lot of work around prevention, helping people to improve their health. We also provide an advice service, and we're very good at helping people, older people, to challenge DWP decisions around their income. So if you know anybody out there who needs particular help, we do find that people struggle with challenging decisions, and we're very successful at helping them to win appeals. Really important, because people really struggle with the IT, etc. We also have a service which is what we call Getting and Staying Online. Our service is for people over the age of 50. It's in several parts. We offer one-to-one tuition. We have a computer club, and we also plan to run computer sessions. We provide it, and there are a number of other community groups who do as well. So I know that sometimes it's difficult to get onto the computers in the libraries, but we provide that service. I know that Pembroke House have a really good ongoing computer programme and support there as well. So it's worthwhile just checking where else you can maybe get that service. I appreciate having your own laptop is much easier, but there are other places where you may well be able to get a bit more support. We also do a lot of work around consultation and campaigning. So on Friday, Councillor Mark Williams very kindly came along and talked to us about the new Southwark plan. And before Christmas, we had a speaker from Fuel Poverty Action who talked to our members about the challenges around choosing to pay for heating or eating. And, you know, in our current economic conditions, we've come back to those days again. Our campaigning arm really is Southwark Pensioners Action Group. They're a very lively group of committed activists, and they campaign on a number of things. I'm going to just touch on some of the things that they have been campaigning around, which come from the National Pensioners Convention. And really, the National Pensioners Convention is asking government to have fair funding for social care. Yeah. So if I can just say to you, you know already, and many of you will experience this personally, there is increasing demand as our population is ageing, and it has increased needs. We know that there have been severe cuts to funding overall. Talked about King's College Hospital. It's affecting the NHS overall. We know that that leads to strain on informal carers. I have some figures from Age UK that say that since 2015-16, 2.2 million people over the age of 65 are providing care to older people. The people who are aged 80 plus and over, it's 400,000 people. That puts a huge amount of strain on those people. Those people, over half of the people providing care who are over 65, have a long-standing illness or disability. So you imagine our system is under huge pressure, and it's placing pressure on some of the most vulnerable people in our community to try and support those older people. There's also been, we talked about council's talked about trying to move the health service from dealing with acute care to prevention. The prevention agenda in terms of community services, we do our bit to try and do some prevention. We managed to get a bit of funding to help people reduce their energy bills and to help people stay warm and well in the winter. So we're doing our own little bit, we're doing a little programme. But actually, wider out there, the pressures on local government mean that actually, since 2010, 2/3 fewer older people get a Meals on Wheels service. Now, in terms of preventing malnutrition and preventing people becoming frail and becoming ill, that is a significant challenge for all of us. I went to an event organised by the Mayor of London looking at ageing wellness in London as a whole. And the theme, it was organised by the London Older People's Forum, and the theme was about the impact of austerity. The lecturer, came from Metropolitan University, couldn't actually put concrete figures on the impact on older people of austerity. The only figure he gave which stood out in my mind was that mortality rates for over 85s have got higher and higher. That's shocking, isn't it? That's shocking. As a society, that's not what we want. As a society, we want people to age well. This council is committed to us being a community where people can age well. But that challenge is significant. We know also that since 2010, I mean, there's been much talk in the press about delayed transfers of care. And, you know, for older people, the phrase that's used, it's a horrible phrase, is bed blocking. Well, in actual fact, I looked at some stats today, and those stats show that actually 57% of delayed transfers of care are down to the NHS. They're not just down to community care packages not being in place, but they're down to internal issues in the NHS. And obviously, Noel, in terms of his role, in terms of improving things for the CCG, I'm sure there's some lessons that can be learned by the NHS overall to try and speed it up so that people don't spend longer in hospital, which will affect their care. We know also that care costs are rising, and we know also that the model is broken. The model is broken. You know, I know that Richard is seeking to provide 3 more nursing care homes to meet demand. Yeah. The industry as a whole, there's something like 5,000 care homes that are becoming unsustainable. Yeah. So the NPC and SPAG would basically say there needs to be a fair funding package. Yeah. And there's talk about should it be through taxation, should it be through people paying for it, but there needs to be some change because people really are on their knees.
Yeah. Kathy, can I ask you to draw to an end?
Sure.
Thank you.
I did just want to say one other little thing. We've done a bit of work around loneliness. We were very lucky. We had a session earlier this year, and we had a lecture by Rachel Reeves on it. So today we're very pleased to see the government announce that there's going to be a Minister for Loneliness, because for older people, being lonely really does affect the quality of their lives, and it shortens their lives. So who knows how much money is actually going to sit behind it. We'll do our little bit, but it will make a difference. I just want to say, from a purely personal point of view, if you see the press article today, the lady who's in it is somebody that I worked with at my previous place. Her name is Shitra, Mrs. Dennis. She actually used to be a maths teacher in Southwark. She taught at Thomas Carlton School before it closed down. So it was interesting to see her say, look, there's very much a need. Well, as an older person, I'm invisible on the street, and there's a need for something to be done. I know this council's doing a lot, and we're doing a little bit as part of the voluntary sector. And we ask, really, our request would be for fair funding for social care, for health, funding for the voluntary sector in terms of what we do around preventing people from deteriorating. And also, I had one more thing, which is obviously around, we're not going to touch on it, more extra care housing, so that people can stay in their communities.
And we are going to put that on our agenda, led by, he doesn't know this yet, Richard, later on in the year. And could you just remind members of the audience exactly where you're located?
Yeah, so we're based at Camberwell Green, 305 to 307 Camberwell Road. We're kind of next to the Father Red Cap. We're open Mondays to Fridays, 9:30 till 4 o'clock. Just pop in to see us, please. We'll be glad to see you.
And of course, it's a huge social hub, isn't it? You know, addressing the loneliness element. Yes. Thank you so much. I'm not going to take. Well, could you see her? I'm going to allow you to see her at the end. Right. I'm going to allow you to see her at the end. Thank you. Kathy, perhaps you'd just like to. No. Go and see. Yeah, if you don't mind. And. You've been incredibly patient, Vicky, but come on down, as they say. Can I introduce you to Councillor Vicky Mills, our very own Councillor Vicky Mills, Cabinet Member for Children's Schools and Chair of Corporate Parenting.
Thank you very much. I'm doing the graveyard shift by the looks of it, so bear with me.
Not quite, but Laura's got that. Laura's got the honour.
So I'm Cabinet Member for Children and Schools. I have responsibility for kind of schools and education, but then on the other side of my responsibilities are with children's social care. Now, children's social care does a huge amount of things with children, young people, with families. A lot of that is about early intervention and support and prevention, but actually some of it, and quite often our work with our most vulnerable young people and families, and our most expensive work is our corporate parenting work, which is our work with, or our responsibility for looked after children. So what is a looked after child? Apologies if you already know this. There are two routes, broadly, to become looked after. So the first one would be you're subject to a care order. So this is when we as a local authority think a child is at significant risk of harm. And secondly, a more consensual, cooperative approach where a child is accommodated under Section 20 of the Children's Act, and this is more about a cooperative approach between the young person, between their parents, and it's not the court forcing the child or young person to be looked after. Now, to get to this stage, there has likely been a huge amount of work, intervention, support with those young people and the family first. Those young people probably are very, very well known to children's social care. So we're talking particularly really about those children towards the end of that process. So what is corporate parenting? So this is the collective responsibility and actually the statutory responsibility of the council, councillors, council employees and partner agencies to provide the very best possible care and safeguarding for looked after children. So we want to be good parents and we want to do the things that any good parent would be doing for their child. I've listed some there. I know I'm speaking quickly because I'm at the end of the night, but it's how do we assess their needs? How do we promote their best interests? How do we make sure they're getting the advice, the support, the opportunities that they should have? And really, really crucially, how do we make sure that their voices and opinions are heard so that they do have a choice, they do have control over their lives and their future? We, as a council, we have a children in care and care leavers strategy. It really sets out our vision and commitment to look after children and care leavers. You can find it on the website. You know, those ambitions are things that dominate the work that I do every day and the work that staff in children's social care do. And then we also have the Council's Corporate Parenting Committee, which I chair, which Councillor Ali sits on. This is a non-partisan committee of councillors and co-opted members, and we effectively hold the council to account. We make sure that the council is doing all it should do, as you know, in terms of being a corporate parenting. It is fulfilling all it should do to these children. Poor outcomes mean that our looked after children and our care leaves are a top priority for Southwark. I'd like to talk about many of the things that we are doing, but I don't really have time today. But just to give you a picture, I mean, we've talked about some health inequalities, but there are some real inequalities for our children who end up being looked after. So thinking about how they've arrived at this situation, 62% of children in care are there as a result of abuse or neglect. It is not a good place that they come to us in, and they're 4 times as likely as their peers to have mental health difficulties. They are less likely to do well at school. 2/3 will have a special educational need or disability. They're twice as likely to be cautioned or convicted of an offence. 1/3 of children in custody have been looked after. I mean, it's a pretty bleak picture. But what I don't want you to take away from this meeting is that the situation is hopeless. I meet our looked after children, I meet our care leavers, and I am continually inspired by young people who are meeting the toughest challenges and actually are making a real success of their lives. And we were visited, our children's services were assessed by Ofsted last March, and one of the things that was really clear was actually our looked after children are doing well. And we'll hear a little bit more from Laura about some of the really strong educational outcomes for our looked after children. But there's a big challenge there. A few stats on Southwark looked after children. So we currently have 496 children in Southwark who are looked after. That's a high number nationally, but it's actually on a downward trajectory over the last 3 years, and that is despite a nationwide increase. So I do think we're doing something right in Southwark. We have done our very best to protect services and support and funding for our most vulnerable children, and we're kind of booking a national trend which is seeing more children being looked after. But we do have greater numbers of older children and children with more complex needs. A couple of priorities I've listed there is really about the quality and the stability of placements and foster carers. So making sure that our young people and children, they get good placements, they are well supported by their foster carers. Those foster carers are real kind of experts, are real nurturers of those children, because we know that if your placement is high quality, if your placement is stable, then your outcomes are more likely to be good. So we have some challenges there, and that is a key priority for us. So fostering in Southwark. So 77% of our looked after children are in foster care, and that's a higher percentage than the picture you will see across England. As I've said, a key priority for us is that stability, the sufficiency and the quality. So really for fostering in Southwark, for us, we think we need more Southwark-approved foster carers who are based in Southwark or near to Southwark. We think that we do a really good job of supporting our foster carers. So we think that by being a foster carer with Southwark, you'll be a better foster carer. We also know that where we use council-approved foster carers, on average they cost £20,000 less per year than using an independent fostering agency, and that, there's not that much difference in terms of outcomes. So trying to bring as many people in-house is important and is a priority for us. We know that outcomes are better if Southwark children are close to their family.
We know that we have great facilities and we have great schools in Southwark, we have free swim and gym, we have libraries, we have leisure centres. We also have a well-resourced CAM service, which is the Children's and Adults Mental Health Service for, Children and Adolescent Mental Health Service for looked after children. We have a good service. So we think if we can keep children in Southwark, near to Southwark, their outcomes will be better. Our children and young people tell us that they would rather be placed in Southwark or near to their families. And so really we should only be looking to place children out of Southwark or some distance from Southwark if there's a reason where they're absolutely going to get something better, or for their own safety we think it would be better if there was a move out of Southwark. So, next one, I'm rattling through as fast as I can. Say we want to attract more foster carers. We've had a big advertising campaign. It generated a large number of inquiries. It has generated some more foster carers, but I think now we want to do the work to ensure that those people who pick up the phone or send an email saying, yes, I'm interested in doing this, why are they not taking the next step? So we're doing a particular piece of work at the moment to try and make sure that those people do take the next step. A big commitment that we made in 2014 as a Labour administration was that we would pay the council tax of our foster carers. So if you are approved, you're a Southwark resident and you're approved as a foster carer by Southwark, then you do not pay council tax. During 2017-18, so the current year that we're in, we think we'll have at least 15 new households approved. I mean, we think that's a big achievement, but you can see, thinking about the fact that we have 496 looked after children, 77% of those in foster care, you can see that we do need to do more if we are going to have the foster carers that we need to look after our children. So, adoption in Southwark. There's some big achievements here. So, as I say, our children's services were inspected in March last year. Overall, we were rated good. I think that's kind of outstanding. The great majority of councils who have been inspected by Ofsted since 2012 have not been good. But actually for our adoption services, they were given a sub-judgment of outstanding. So we are doing great work for adoption, and we should be very proud of that. Nationally, there is a trend of less adoptions, but we still have high numbers of adoptions here in Southwark compared to our London neighbours. In 16-17, 20 children were adopted, and we're probably on track for 16 to 20 to be adopted by the end of, 17-18. And then finally, a really key achievement, I think, is that children are being adopted quicker. So when we make the decision that the best outcome, the best plan for a child is to go down the adoption route, that process is now becoming quicker, which is great news. So over a year quicker than it was 5 years ago. And then priorities. So we want to continue to move at speed. If there's no reason for delay, we should be making that move to adoption as quickly as we can. Again, thinking about those older